Guys, my name is Noah, and for the purpose of this video, it's important to know that I was sober for about a year and then I relapsed about 5-6 weeks ago. A lot of the questions that you guys left me on my previous video, which was asking for questions to do a Q&A on, were around that. So most of what we're going to talk about today is about my drinking, my mental health, and then we'll scatter a little bit beyond that based on the questions you asked me. A little bit about TRT, a little bit about trauma, stuff like that. It's been an interesting stretch of time for me, undoubtedly, an interesting stretch of time, and I found myself isolating from you guys a fair bit, and so what I do when that happens historically is I just ask you guys to give me questions, help direct my thinking, help direct my content a little bit, as I often do feel stifled when I go through a relapse. So I have been getting sober and then relapsing on this channel very openly for as long as essentially this channel has gone on. So I'm so incredibly grateful that you guys are hands-on with me. I'm so thankful that you're willing to ask me the hard questions and that you're here to support me, hopefully support yourself. Definitely, I see you guys supporting each other in the comment section, and it's a cool thing. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever built, is this little community we have. So I've been avoiding this because I want you guys to like me, and I want you guys to respect me, and I want you guys to want to be here, and I love what we have here. And that need to be, that want, I think is more appropriately put, that want to be liked and respected by you guys sometimes causes me a lot of stress, and it's something I've had to deal with in a healthy way over the years, because you know there's certain things I can and can't control, and one thing I always want to do on this channel is just be honest. Like if I can help anything, it's that I can be honest. So right now we'll be honest about something that I definitely have insecurities about, which is the fact that I relapsed. So with all that being said, let's get in this Q&A again. You guys voted top 10 questions. I'm so grateful. I can't believe so many people participated. And we'll start with the number one question, which was left by Johnny Regs. Thank you, Johnny, for dropping the question. It was what I was presuming would be the main question of this Q&A, and it simply is asking, are you still drinking? Which is a reasonable question to ask someone who was outspoken about being sober, working a recovery program, and letting go of that life. And the answer is yes. The answer is yes, I am still drinking 6-7 weeks after my relapse. That question by Johnny had 103 votes. All right, so the question number two, as voted by you guys with 87 votes, was from the Painted Zebra. How did your wife handle the relapse? That's a crazy question. That's a huge question. I think there's a lot of fear for her initially. I think there's a lot of fear. She, you know, the days and weeks really leading up to the actual relapse were almost like preparing her for what I suppose you can now say, looking back on it, the inevitable, which was for me to relapse at least this last time. Because as I came up to my 1-year sobriety milestone in my 12-step recovery program, I started to feel tremendous angst, tremendous pressure, tremendous stress, and I started craving and I started worrying that I was going to drink again, you know, and I really put those cards on the table. I had a classic freak out leading up to that milestone, and I expressed that to her very clearly, because she's my best friend and I don't want to lie to her, and she handled me with care, with love, with tenderness. She was great. And then the milestone happened, and then I fell into a depressive episode, like instantly. I just became very depressed, and then I relapsed a couple weeks after that. Initially, you know, she woke up for work that day. I think she could smell it on me, and of course, it just stressed her out. You know, she got home, and she just asked, she's like, "So you drank last night?" I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "How are you feeling?" I said, "I don't know." She goes, "How was it?" You know, I was like, "It was okay," or whatever. I answered some of her questions. She cried a little bit. She reiterated some of the things that I already knew, which was that she is not willing to participate in my alcoholism like it was at the end of my last round of drinking. And we just had a very clear, candid talk about how things tend to go for me when I start drinking again, what she'll be looking for, what she wants to be vocal about with me, and that she loves me dangerously. And what that means is that she's not going to leave. She let me know she's not going to leave right now, but she's not going to stay if and when it gets bad. And it's an interesting space to be in for me. So I feel like she handled it pretty well, but my wife's like an onion. My wife's like an onion. I'm a lot more transparent, or at least outspoken about my emotions, feelings, fears, whatever. She is more contemplative. She's more reserved. She's more introverted. So I still think there's a lot of things she's processing deep within herself, and hopefully with someone else. I've encouraged her to talk to someone because she's trying to sort this out still. But that's how she reacted to the very day. She cried a little bit, she expressed a little frustration, but then it's like she got back on the horse and she's like, you're the person I married, you're the person I love. Here's where we are today, we'll see what happens tomorrow. She was mostly extremely kind with me and understanding. I'm very, very lucky for my wife. And question number 3, with 56 votes from you guys, is from Callista Lisbeth, and it says, how did it feel to take that drink? You know, the day I actually drank again, the first day I drank again, it was 100% a response to just feeling very depressed. I decided that I didn't want to cope naturally and holistically anymore. I was just uncomfortable. I was writhing in discomfort from my depression. And I chose to drink to treat that discomfort, to treat that depression. And it worked for that. Yeah, it worked for that. You know, as a Band-Aid, it can work for that. The first drink was like nothing. The first drink was like absolutely nothing. I didn't really even feel it. It was more just like, oh my God, I've had a drink again. Oh my God, I'm really gonna do it. You know, I hadn't drank in a year, so it's not like I haven't drank in my life plenty, but even a year away from it, you almost forget what it feels like. And so, one thing that alcohol can do is bring you into the now. And when you're in the discomfort and the throes of depression like I was that day, you'll do anything to get into the now because you're just hurting. And so it felt good. It felt relieving, it felt calming, and I did enjoy myself. I watched an episode of Game of Thrones with a buddy, and the follow-up question to that was it what you were expecting by Callista? And yeah, it was what I suppose it was what I was expecting. And then also, how did you feel after your alcohol consumption? If you mean like with a buzz, I just felt like I had a little buzz or whatever. And then the next day I felt fine. I almost felt like a strange relief, quite frankly, which I think has to do with some way that I process milestones in recovery. I've always felt, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this, I've always felt like a pressure about milestones. I know it's not a unique thing to my experience. I think it's something a lot of people go through. But there was definitely like a release, like, oh, okay, that monkey's off my back. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Remember, guys, my job here, and the promise I have to myself is to answer these questions honestly. Not what I think you want to hear, not what I think will sound good or paint me in the perfect light, but just how it's actually feeling and what's actually going on. So, if anything, especially if you're just like sitting there shaking your head at me, perhaps, I hope you can take some sort of solace in the fact that I'm willing to be honest, even if it leads to you not wanting to be a part of this channel, which clearly is a bit of a fear for me. Okay, the next highest voted question is from Naomi White, and Naomi with 42 votes. And Naomi says, do you plan to be sober again? As of today, no. No, I don't actively plan on being sober again. And that's a hard thing for me to say out loud. There's always like this feeling after I relapse again where I'm just like, Jesus, like it happened again, you know, and part of me is like, just get right back on the horse. The other part of me is like, I'm tired of getting on that horse. You know, I was really ingrained in the culture of 12-step programs since my parents first got into them when I was in high school. And it's really the only avenue of dealing with the way my brain works and my relationship with alcohol that I've ever known. And I don't want to consider it like a failure. I've gotten beyond thinking like, oh, I keep failing, you know, I'm a failure. It's not so much that, but I do find myself attempting to renegotiate what might be best for me long term. Which sounds kind of strange, right? Because I think anyone could objectively look at the situation and be like, dude, just if you're sober, it's best for you long term. But there's that little part of me that just longs to be still a part of the drinking world and also be like the most healthy version of myself that's always kind of been there in the underlying, in the soil of the whole thing, no matter how high I grow when I get sober and the things I try to accomplish. So no, I don't actively plan on getting sober right now, but trust me, I'm doing something that I've always done, and I'm working hard at it. As I'm trying to be responsible. I'm trying to still be helpful and useful to other people. I'm trying not to be overly self-absorbed. I'm trying to continue to do the things that I've always done this last year to grow and to better myself, to cope in healthy ways. But there's like a bitterness with sobriety when you relapse and you go through depression and sobriety and all those things. For me, it's just like, as of today, no. But I will also say that I am not being, I am very much, I know it's there, and I really appreciate the fact that I know it's there. So as long as I feel like I'm safe right now and whatever, this clearly needs to happen. I'm a big believer, and just like I am where I'm supposed to be at the moment. And I know I can go back, though. I know I have a safe community and environment and a familiar place to go back if and when I decide I need that. Thank you for your question. The next highest voted question, it came from Alexa Selness with 21 votes. And Alexa says, no offense at all by this question, but do you think sharing so much about your personal life online could be a trigger for your anxiety and depression? This is a question I've seen in the comment section for years, and it's something I have privately contemplated. Maybe I brought it up on the channel, but I just don't remember. I wonder, how about that? All I can say with certainty is that I've wondered, like, have I reached a point with this whole experience of trying to be open about my mental health, my life, or whatever, to the best of my ability? Have I reached a point in this experience with you guys where it's diminishing returns for my personal mental health? Like, am I caught in a cycle of struggling and sharing, and then, let's say, starting to do better, and there's like a real empowering, wonderful feeling based on the response you guys get, in the sense that I'm doing something of value in the world by just being open, but then I get, in trouble again, the views kind of go up. And I noticed that correlation, and a long time ago I noticed, like, when I'm doing worse, the views get better. I feel like it's something that could be argued either way. Like, part of me is like, maybe this is bad. The other part of me is like, man, this brings me so much fulfillment. This brings me such peace. And I know, just based on the way you guys have treated me and the dialogue we've shared over the years and all the questions I get and feedback I get, that I know, just like any of us, that sharing my story as it is, it can be very powerful, tremendously useful in connecting people that often feel very alone, which is the depressed community, the anxiety community, DP community, the low T community. So mostly I'm going to go with no. I don't think it's a trigger, because I think that's something I look out for, and I work with my leadership in my life and I try to just focus on the blessings of this channel. I mean, this whole experience, being a YouTuber, creating this channel, and the other channel I run with my dad, has completely changed my life, and it really fits well in many aspects with my depressive tendencies. I remember talking to someone in my leadership circle named Douglas Block, who I featured on the channel, and he told me a long time ago, when he was going through his depressive episodes, as a depressive person who's prone to relapse in depression, that he knew he was going to have to figure out a vehicle financially to support himself and find meaning and fulfillment that would also play well to the often unpredictable nature of his mental health. And I really took that to heart. So to me, that's part of what this is. So I think as long as I'm mindful of my actions and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, my motivations, my goals, or whatever, I think this can mostly be a very positive thing, and I hope to always have it, and hope to always continue to do it. But I do want to be really careful to not get caught in a weird cycle of needing approval, needing validation, needing to be fixed, or whatever. And of course, I mean, it's easier to see someone else in certain lights than it is to see yourself. So I'm a work in progress with that. It's a really good question, though. Clearly I had a lot to say, because it's been on my mind a lot. It's a good question. The next question, with 19 votes, from Headman KC, says, hey Noah, question. How do you think TRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy, guys, has impacted your mental health, specifically anxiety and depression? So for many of you who are new, who may not know, this whole me falling into a clinical depression with panic disorder and depersonalization back in 2011, it came to a head after tons of treatment, when I found out I had really, really low testosterone. I mean, extremely low, nearly off the charts low, total and free. Basically the most important and vital hormone that a man can have. I had like none of it. And so we started treating that. Now, on TRT, which I'm currently on, the lowest dose I've ever been on 100 a week milligrams, on TRT, I have definitely experienced still a significant amount of depression and anxiety. Anxiety, not so bad, but depression has still come up. I've had waves of depression, certainly little bouts of smaller episodes of depression, and sometimes pretty aggressive, even on TRT. Now, what I will say about TRT, which is why I always tell guys and gals, really, like, you guys should get your blood work done. You should know how your hormones look, all of them. What I will say is that it raised the floor. right? It raised the floor. What TRT did was it addressed my low testosterone symptoms, right? So I had massive erectile dysfunction. I had absurd energy deficiencies, just a crisis of energy, a lot more brain fog, I'd say, and I had no appetite. So I was working with all that on top of depression, anxiety, dealing with trauma, stuff like that, and depersonalization. So getting my hormones and my thyroid included, getting that regulated properly certainly just gave me more steam, more energy to attempt to learn how to grow, cope, and deal with my depression and my anxiety in a more meaningful and long-lasting way. Whereas before I had addressed the hormone issue, it was like being depressed, let's say more organically depressed on top of being hormonally depressed. It was like a double whammy. So I certainly felt an increase in vitality. I felt an increase in sex drive. I felt an increase in appetite, a little increase in energy. And then I was able to start putting in a better fight towards the depression. But I still struggle with depression. You know, I think that was bigger than just my testosterone. That's for sure. And it's a wonderful question. Something you also asked, which I'm going to go ahead and, just because a lot of the topic of this Q&A has been alcohol related, but something you also asked was, do you think TRT in any way has led to your most recent relapse in alcoholism? And I don't think the two are related, personally. Thank you for your question. All right, so the next question with 15 votes from Christian Aguilar is, what triggered you to relapse? And it's sort of a question I answered before, but again, you know, shamelessly, I believe and something I'm coming to terms with more now than ever, my depression, the powerlessness I feel over waves of depression and rumination. I do pretty good now managing the rumination, but depression, like when those waves hit me, they are so heartbreaking to me and they're so deflating, and I get so angry at them. I really do. And you know, as a lot of you know, when you try to live a lifestyle that is pretty conducive for good mental health, and things don't go your way, it can make you bitter. You know, it can make you bitter. And beyond that, I was just uncomfortable. You know, I was just uncomfortable, and I felt in a weakened state because I'd spent like 2 or 3 weeks leading up to that milestone, my 1 year sober. Just, it really drained me that couple 2-3 weeks before that milestone. I mean, it drained me hard. So I felt like I started binge eating. I just went to pieces. It was a strange thing. And then I felt so depressed. And then I realized that I was going through what appeared to be a depressive episode, which I still think I am. It's you know, I'm working through it. I'm finding a lot of words just to say that I drank because I felt depressed and I didn't want to feel depressed anymore. I didn't drink because I thought it would lead to a more fulfilling life. I didn't drink because I just wanted to party with people. Not in that particular day. I just didn't want to be depressed for that time period. I was done. I was done being depressed that day, and I took the path of least resistance on that one. And you know what? Something I've had to think about and come to terms with is just the very real fact that cannot and will not ever be an adequate treatment plan for depression. It's an incredibly dangerous thing to flirt with when it comes to being depressed, and I know that. I really do. Christian also answered, do you think you can asked, do you think you can co-live with alcohol? If not, or so, why? I don't know. That's the question, right? That's the question everyone with a history of drinking problems like myself may or may not come to battle with. And it's one I'm certainly attempting to do right now. But my wife brought this up to me, you know, as she's seen how these past 6-7 weeks have gone. She's like, listen, I'm going to tell you when I see repetitive behaviors from the past. I want you to be aware of when you're simply repeating yourself, both in action and in word. And it's been really strange. So as of right now, I seem to be co-living with it okay. I really don't, it's hard to know what's good or what's bad. It's all relative, right? Like the whole spectrum of addiction and alcoholism and mental health or whatever, it's crazy. And it's so individual, right? So I know people that drink a lot more than me, but they've never ever professed any drinking problems, certainly haven't exhibited anything that you could see from the outside that would speak to that. They talk well about their mental health, they hold on to their commitments and stuff like that. But for me, it's like, since I started drinking again, I have drank twice a week, every week since then. Now my goal in general is one or less, but I haven't hit that goal yet. I haven't hit that goal yet. One thing about immersing yourself into an environment and a community of people that do partake is that there are a lot of things going on, and it's the summertime, and so now I'm once again, just like before, I'm being invited to events and things, and I'm hosting things, and it's like I'm tapping into this different version of myself that just goes dormant, when you get sober. It just goes completely dormant. So I don't have to, but I'm choosing to try to co-live with it. And what I seem to have done as like a response to a physically unhealthy behavior is up my self-care, up my nutrition. I've been training a lot more, up my CrossFit, trying to up my everything to compensate. It's been an interesting dichotomy to see myself just pivot, right? To see myself completely pivot as I try to navigate whatever this is. Now, one thing I can say, which I'm really thankful for, but one thing I can say that I'm proud of is that I've maintained a positive self-worth. I've maintained a lot of self-love. I've maintained my disciplines and my structure and my routines. And I've continued to be honest and open about my leadership, about what's going on. I don't hate myself for this, which does feel a bit different than before. As much as I know I'm clearly trying to figure this out, I'm trying to rationalize, I'm trying to make sense of it all, I'm trying to give myself permission to ... I'm kind of just letting myself go through the process, and my inner parent is treating younger scared me pretty well, which is nice. And it allows me to feel more freedom. Let's say that if I need to navigate myself back to a different space, be it 12-step or whatever, sobriety, I know I can, and I don't think there will be quite the roller coaster that there's been in the past. And by the way, guys, this is like honestly one of my first times really talking about this stuff. So thank you for playing, thank you for playing good friend to me and letting me share, because it's hard to put words to a lot of this stuff. It's the things that go on between our ears, as you know, it's wild, the things we think and the way we process, and it's hard to speak about. It is. So I'm glad for the opportunity, though. That's for sure. Okay, let's keep moving. All right, the next question came from John Piles. It had 15 votes on it, and this was an interesting question. I was excited to talk about this one. John says, do you think you relapsed because you weren't working the 12 steps properly, or do you think that the steps don't work? Right off the bat, I'll answer the second one first. I definitely have seen them work for people. I've definitely seen people completely buy in, right, which is huge. Completely buy into recovery, to the 12-step program, to the whole thing, and they've maintained sobriety, right? So I think when it comes to myself working a 12-step program, this last round of working it, this was the hardest I've ever worked a 12-step program, and I mean that. Now, of course, you can always look back and like, oh, I could have worked it harder, and I can dig myself into a hole of feeling like maybe I didn't do it good enough. And that's something that I wonder if a lot of other people struggle with who have been in recovery and then failed, right? Is that, oh man, what did I do wrong? Because the whole way that they express this program, which I still think is a very cool, very valuable program, I'm still comforted to know it's around, is that like, they say something in the opening statements essentially, which is, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Usually those who do not are people who cannot or will not be completely honest with themselves. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are constitutionally incapable of being rigorously honest, something like that. So when you read those things, and you read it every day you go, I was going to a meeting a day just about, especially the first 4 months, and then you relapse, you're just like, shoot, I didn't thoroughly follow the path enough, right? I think sometimes there's like these feelings of, what's wrong with me? I'm such a failure. And I'm more in tune with those feelings, and I try to like damper that down. I mean, this is life. Addiction, substance, or whatever, these things are, it's complicated. It's not simple. We're all doing the best we can. We have people that have struggled with alcohol. You got people that struggle with food. You have people that struggle with sex. You have we struggle. We're human. We're trying to figure out how to navigate this very tempting, very isolating, very depressing, but also wonderful world to the best of our ability. So when I put it all together like that, I try not to beat myself up too much for the 12-step thing, and try to just embrace the things I learn. But you can't help but wonder, right? Do you think you relapsed because you weren't working the 12 steps properly? I don't know. I don't know. It's a complex thing for me to even understand how I work. And I'm working with a drug and alcohol counselor for the last year. I've got traumas I got to deal with. I have self-sabotaging behaviors I'm supposed to work through. I'm undisciplined, and I'm learning how to do that. So I think it's so many things. I can only be in touch with so many of what's going on. I can only really put into to my psyche so much. But perhaps that was a lot of me basically talking circles around the fact that I don't know. But it was the hardest I've ever worked them. I certainly know. How about this? I'll finish this question with this. I do know that historically I have maybe not given my all to something, because then if I fail, I don't have to feel terrible about failing because I didn't really give it my all. I don't know if that's what happened here, but I wonder. I suspect. I also suffer from feelings of just poor self-worth, right? And thinking like the grass is always greener, and never giving myself enough credit. So I'm trying to lean more on the side of nurturer for myself, and the side of soothing, and just being like, good job for what you did, Noah. Like, good job for the time you put in. I mean, I put in so much hard work, and I gained so much valuable experience this past year. I'm trying to focus more on that than to beat myself up with negativity or whatever. I just don't see that being fruitful. I don't see that leading to anything. But I clearly have thought about this a lot. And I've certainly always associated sober Noah with good Noah. Sober Noah is just responsible, and he's taking ownership over his mental health and his addiction, and he's doing the right thing, and he's someone you can trust, and he's someone you can be proud of. And I loved that feeling. It gave me quite a sense of wellness and a high, really. But then, life goes on, and you realize that your sobriety is for you, and the whole journey has nothing to do with anybody else, really. I mean, not to say you can't affect people, but people are living their own lives. They're doing their own thing, and eventually, sometimes you come to this point where you're just like, is this all there is? Like, life is still hard, Depression is still real. I still miss drinking, and I've never quite made it too far past that. Yeah. But I still have air in my lungs. Lucky for me, I still have a great support system. I still have my health, and if that's where I need to go back to, I know I can. So, just trying to be more graceful, I guess. Hold on. We're getting close here, guys. Obviously, I'm taking liberties with some of these questions. I recognize that. So the next question with 13 votes is from Alex O'Brien. Alex says, why do you feel you failed? Your year sober didn't go away. Your accomplishments aren't lost. We're all cheering for you, and I appreciate that cheer. You guys are my herd. You guys are my family. I appreciate that very much. And you know what? I don't think I failed. I think I worked past that pretty quickly, as I said before, and I'll try not to belabor the issue. But like I said, I'm human. You're human. I do a lot of good things. There's a lot of things I'm very proud of, and I'm trying to show myself a little grace and a little take it easy with the things that I'm insecure about, like partying last Saturday, for example, as someone with a history of alcohol problems and mental health. There's a part of me that's just like, what are you thinking? This is absurd. You're absolutely lying to yourself. Stuff like that, just harsher language than that. But then there's this other part of me that's it's like, no, this is just where I'm at. This is what I'm choosing to do. And I don't want to get lost, and I don't want to take myself so serious. Like, what else can I still do? It doesn't mean I have to shut down my whole world. It doesn't mean there's anything bad or wrong about me, that sort of thing. So I don't think I failed. I think that I experienced the year of sobriety that I did. For a lot of reasons, many of which I think have to do with the way that I cope and I deal with the trauma of my depression from the past and the way it still manifests, and just some anger I have towards that. I chose to drink, and I still know that the long-term path must consist of sustainable, healthy, holistic means of managing my depression, because feeling mentally stable, being mentally stable is that's everything. That's everything. It still is. And I know the things that really work. I mean, fitness works, prayer works, meditation works, affirmations work, gratitude, leadership, being of service to others, taking my supplements, managing my hormones, working with a doctor, continuing to read and learn, blah, blah, blah. All those things still matter. So, and I think a lot of us need to hear that. I think it's really important, especially if you're like a chronic relapser like me. it's hard not to delve into feeling broken and feeling just embarrassed and all that stuff, because so many people get on your team when you get sober, and then I'm sure I've never really dug too deep into how this affects like other people other than, like, let's say my wife, maybe my parents, but it's just like, it must be strange to see Noah from the outside and be like, oh, he's sober again, cool. Oh, he's drinking again, okay, cool. Oh, he's sober again, all right, here we go again, cool. Oh, he's drinking again. It's like, you wonder if people are talking about you. You wonder a little bit if you're being judged. But as soon as I start wondering about that, I've gone too far. I'm thinking too much about myself and not focusing on what really matters in life. So this is my messy, beautiful life. It just is what it is. It's okay. It's the exact story I'm supposed to live. And the last question is a very different question. This last question is completely off topic from everything we've been discussing, which has essentially been just my drinking and how I'm mentally processing all of it. But Live Love Lifts 92 with 13 votes asks, could you please talk about the topic of being a child with parents who suffer from depression and suicidality? So what a compelling question. Thank you for leaving that. My mom and dad are both in recovery. My mom in particular, and I know she's okay talking about this, or for me talking about this rather, with me talking about this. She's dealt with depression most of her adult life. And right now it's in a really good space. I'm so proud of her for the way she lives and things she does to manage it. She's on medications. She goes to therapy. She works out. Her lifestyle. She does a lot of wonderful things. But the only thing I can speak to here is that I've been a child of an addicted parent. I've been a child of a depressed parent. And, as far as the topic goes, I know that I've learned a lot this past year about attachment and how, as children, we have to attach to survive. When we're triggered, when we're in danger, when there's that fight or flight, we can't flight, we can't fight. We're too little, and so we attach, and we often attach to unhealthy figures. And of course, my mom and my dad, and like all of us, there were some unhealthy things about the attachments we made and the way I had to survive my childhood. And I say survive relatively loosely. I've had to also learn to give myself credit for trauma as a kid. It definitely was hard to see my mom deal with addiction. It certainly was hard to see her deal with mood problems because I know personally as an adult, I know how bad mood hurts. I know how aggressive it can make you feel. I know how short-tempered you can be. I know how hopeless and apathetic it makes me feel. So when my mom was dealing with some of that stuff growing up, and working through her own trauma and everything, it definitely impacted me. And I think it leads, I don't know if any child really makes it out of childhood without some stuff. I think it's just about impossible anymore. But I know that it left me with a lot of holes to fill for my self-worth, a lot of me not having stable parents all the time, which leads to weird ways of coping with life and finding self-worth and self-identity. It's honestly stuff I'm very new to. I've only been learning this past year, but I think most people deal with this in one way, shape, or form. And Lord knows it's not easy to have parents who are dealing with mood disorders. I think that's one of my greatest fears about having kids is that I'm not as severe as I once was. I keep that perspective when it comes to my depression. I think I keep that perspective with most things, but one thing's for sure is I probably experience hopelessness at least once a day. I can still go into depressive episodes. I think I'm still in one right now. I still think about suicide, in these sort of states, and I can go from feeling quite well and quite stable to so devastatingly low so fast that I'm frightened to have children because I know that it's a massive responsibility, or so I've heard, and I would never want to not be there 100% for my kid. And it's scary when you don't know what to expect from the way your mental health is going to work. It's scary. And of course, when I'm stable, and I know I will have another long and bountiful, stable stretch. But yeah, you start dreaming about life with kids and how great it would be. And then you go through a depressive episode where you struggle to get out of bed. You're faking 90% of your interactions because you feel uncomfortable inside. And you're just so excited to hit the bed because you just want the day to stop. I know how fast that can happen. And it makes you apprehensive about having kids. Now, I've never had a suicidal parent. I can't speak to that. And I can't speak to that. And I can't imagine how hard that would be. I can't imagine how hard that would be. I know that the people I love in my life and the relationships I have, they tether me to this world when I still have those low feelings and those dangerous thoughts. But I think that's all I really have to say about that topic. It's a big topic, one that I don't formally understand super well. But I know that we all come out of childhood needing to work on ourselves and trying to figure out, how to have healthy relationships, healthy boundaries, healthy communication styles. We have to figure out what part of our parenting, or what part we have to transition out of, the parents we had to become the parent for ourselves. And I think that's been something I've done a really good job at this last year, is learning to be my own parent, learning to fill whatever void maybe I did experience as a child, and take ownership over that. And I've also grown in terms of my compassion for my parents, in terms of my compassion for those who have raised kids whilst battling addiction, whilst battling mental health. I mean, shout out to my mom and dad. They've done some incredible things, and I still look back at my childhood, and I don't care what anyone says. I think I had a beautiful childhood, and I know it wasn't perfect, but I think they did the best they could, and I'm working and willing to work through the aspects of their parenting that perhaps were a bit of a shortcoming for them. So I hope that they don't watch this. I know my mom's gonna watch this. She watches everything. Hi, Mom. I hope she doesn't. I hope you don't watch this, Mama, and think that I think anything but highly of you. You're one of my heroes, 100%. And you guys, that's about it. That's 10 questions. We've been at it for a long time. And listen, that's 10 questions out of almost 200. There were so many good questions. Honestly, I could talk all day, because it's very cathartic for me to share honestly, or at least, as honest as I can be. The whole sharing honestly thing is interesting when you're on YouTube and you're doing this whole thing. It's like, yeah, you don't want to pander. So it's an interesting thing to try to cut the bullshit of public appearance and just be real. Thank you guys for giving me some content to put out for you. I miss you. I miss you so much, and I want to get back into a space of just trying to be of service to you guys. This gets me back into a space of communicating, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Shout out to everyone who left me questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to them all. There certainly wouldn't be a way, but I read them all, and I really do appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. All right, take care.